DTRShow podcast brought to you by Murdock Worldwide Entertainment on the Down the Road Show YouTube channel and Chronicles of Comic-Con channel. You're listening to the audio podcast wherever it's available. We are sponsored by Everyday Natural Products, and I just got in my brand new immunity elixir from them today. I highly recommend you try this. I can't wait to get back to you and let you know how I feel after trying this. But they are graciously giving all of our listeners and fans out there at empstore.com a 20% discount when you use the promo code down the road. So thank you to all of our loyal listeners and viewers and watchers. So on top of that, I got a bunch of samples that I'll be giving away on social media and throughout different podcasts. So let's bring in our guest today. I'm excited. We go back quite a ways. How you doing today, Anthony Lee Winn? Hey,
how's it going, Ken?
It's going pretty good. You know, it's a Friday. I decided to knock one back because the coronavirus has me feeling cooped up as it is. So I figured while you were drawing today and we were catching up, I'd catch a little buzz.
Nice. Good on you.
Yeah. So we're going to do some live drawing today with you, which is exciting.
Right. Yeah, yep.
And you and I go way, way back. Originally met when you were doing Stripperella with Stan Lee.
Correct. Yep.
And so you're going to share some Stan Lee stories with us today?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, those were the days. I mean, it seems like it was like yesterday, but yeah, like working with Stan was truly an honor, and it was a blessing. And I know like there's some artists that feel differently about that because, you know, they would rather be in the limelight, but hey, Stan was such a great personality and he stood out, and it was always pleasant working with him. So I never felt like that way that some other people may have felt, but there's also a good amount of artists as well, along with me that really enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, like, you know, you hear rumors, you hear people talk and whatnot, but every encounter I ever had with Stan was just like super kind and super gracious towards me. And the fact that like he meets so many people at all these conventions and business wise and whatnot, that like he would even remember me. It was always just like, you know, said a lot about his character to me personally anyway.
Right. Yeah, he was really generous with his time. So, you know, it was one of those things where you knew that he had the it factor, or whatever that was, that really put an individual in a part of history where he stood out. And sorry, that's my phone ringing. I don't know if you heard that, but give me 1 second.
Yeah.
You put it on mute. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
This will be edited out.
But he was part of history where like you couldn't deny who he was. You know, he was a figurehead and the godfather of comics.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you gonna draw live on the podcast today?
Well, you know, since we did discuss Stripperella, and also I mentioned I didn't only draw Stripperella in my career. I also used to draw Wolverine.
I wore a Wolverine shirt for you.
Yeah. So we could do like something fun where Wolverine is interacting or getting a lap dance from Stripperella or something like that.
Cool. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that screen share and let's talk and catch up, because I mean, gosh, when was the last time we saw each other? I think it was at San Diego Comic-Con like 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was quite some years ago. And then like even towards that end, I was just like, it was really overwhelming. And every year it just got crazier and crazier with like running a booth over there. And then it just got to the point where I figured I had to start focusing on my career in another path outside of my comfort zone, which was more of working in feature film, like storyboards, like illustrations and concept design, you know. So eventually I made my way into, you know, working on union movies, of course, you know. So, but yeah, this is just for me scratching the surface, you know. So once one door closes, another one opens. And not that I don't want to ever do comics anymore, but I still do comics in a sense where it's digital comics for actually a particular app called Scroll On, Story Attic through there's a company called Third Floor Entertainment, and they do a lot of pre-visualization for like Marvel movies and a bunch of other big budget films. But they have a division where you're developing a lot of your own content. And currently that's what I'm working on as well, you know. So, but as far as monthly comic books where I used to work traditionally, that's not what I do anymore. So, you know, we don't know how the industry is going to be there anyways. But I see it going more digital anyways, especially how, you know, times are right now, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting you brought that up because like it seemed like they tried to go really digital 10 years ago, but it didn't quite work, and so like now is definitely the time.
Right, right. And it was like they were thinking ahead of their time. And when we did Stripperella, Stan and I did the revamped version of Stripperella, which was, you know, nothing against Pam Anderson, but we got away from that and we made her a redhead instead. So just to review what had happened.
Heck yeah, ginger power.
Yeah. So we started working on that, and he said he wanted to get away from the idea of the property resembling her because the cartoon was out on Spike TV. So he approached me, he called me, he said, Anthony, would you like to work with me on revamping Stripperella? And I said, absolutely, man. Fuck yeah. So
yeah.
I basically,
how do you say no to any of that?
Yeah. So, you know, I think I spent about 8 months on it because like Stan was working on other stuff too. And this is before Disney bought into POW Entertainment. But we took about 8 months working on it, and we really, you know, put our love and effort into it. And the difference between what we had worked on our book, which was a digital comic strip, you know, and which was published at the time through Click On, I think, something like that. But that was
I can't remember who. I downloaded it. I can't remember who it was through. Yeah.
But we did that, and then like after that, like I got the license to be able to publish the book physically, you know, and I got the distribution deal where I got it through Diamond. And I was able to do that and be able to provide that in the following year because the fans were wondering how they can get it autographed, right? So they were like, because during one of our panels with Stan and I, the fans wanted to know how they get it signed. So that's where I stepped in and I said, well, you know, possibly next year I'll publish it, you know. So and we had a book and we did our thing where we had my booth and a bunch of fans showed up and they went crazy for it. And
you always had an awesome booth set up too at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, you know, that was a lot of fun, you know, and I think I think it was deemed the sexiest booth at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, It didn't hurt that you had a cosplayer there being Stripperella live. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had some great models there as well. And then like, but the fun part about that was that when I had gone over with Stan what we could do more with Stripperella is like basically what he had done with Spider-Man. So basically, like my idea was to treat Stripperella like, okay, like how Spider-Man is the hero to New York, she would have been like the hero to Las Vegas. So essentially what Spider-Man is to New York, she's to Vegas. And he loved the idea. So he's like, oh, wow, I'm glad I thought of that. You know, so, but the thing is like, you know, I know like some people would hate that, you know, but you know, I love the fact that he was enthusiastic about it, but everybody would have known anyways, like there was a collaboration there. You know, so we truly did collaborate on that, and we were trying to get the ball rolling, but there was a lot of like bureaucracy that was going on between, like, you know, the business partners and at POW, and you know, all these potential deals that could have happened over in Las Vegas. You know, so but I still think it's a great idea. Maybe someday down the line we could revisit that, and I'm hoping the right producers or the people will step up and like, you know, approach me, you know, and go, hey, you know, maybe we could pull this off somehow, you know.
Well, cool. Let's get that screen share going then, and
okay. All right.
You start drawing for the fans out there, and we'll talk more about the storyboarding because I think that's a really cool avenue that a lot of people don't think about. And when it comes to pre-production out there for movies and television, storyboarding is such a crucial, important part, especially for not just directors, but the production crew in general, to really visualize, you know, lighting for the grips. You know, so much could be done already in the storyboard part to set up television or movie that, you know, amateurs don't even think about.
Correct. And that's the thing, is like there's a level of pre-planning and premeditating that always has to happen when you are creating a product or something for people to buy, you know. So I'm a firm believer that storyboarding is like the blueprints for film, you know. And if you look at some of the best films, you know, they have that pre-planning and premeditating in it, you know, especially with, you know, films like from Alfred Hitchcock or Orson Welles, or, you know, all those guys are, you know, are the greatest, or even Spielberg. You know, this, you have to pre-plan all that stuff, you know. And occasionally you hear about other directors that just don't want to like deal with the storyboards, but that's a true sign that you're going to fail at making a movie if you don't use storyboards.
Right.
So,
Magic can happen, but magic
Yeah.
is planned most of the time.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So the thing is, yeah, I'm a firm believer of that, and especially like coming from like a seasoned background as a comic book artist, and then going into this, like I'm very passionate about it. Like approaching all my drawings and shots where I'm prepared with my reference and whatever it is that I'm working with. Not that I draw from reference, but before I start a movie, what I usually ask from the producers is like, should I research something so I can get in the zone for it? Because occasionally I'll work on something and they don't tell me until I jump on it. But usually what I'll ask is that, hey, is it science fiction, or is it a fantasy, or is it crime, or, something that way I could, start getting like gelled into it, so dialed in, more likely.
Yeah, get the creative juices just flowing properly.
Right. Yeah. So like, so that's one of my favorite things to do is to actually research a project that I'm going to work on, and just have fun with it. So yeah. So I know.
Well, and you recently went all digital, and because that's helping with your transition and your overall time with dealing with big productions and other people as well too.
Yeah, especially for the workflow. So that way I can, deliver work efficiently and fast. And if there's a change that needs to be done, I could do it like right on the spot. As of recently, I've been working more on like my iPad Pro through Procreate, and that's great too. But that's even sped up my workflow 10 times. What I'm working on right now is called Corel Painter. And it's a great program to work on because it has all these beautiful brushes. You can play around with it and all that. So I highly recommend it for young artists or whatever that want to like get into this craft and like have a really intuitive program to work with. So so now it sounds like a tutorial. Jeez.
Well, I mean, when you got knowledge and you got useful information, I'm all about sharing it on this program for sure.
Right. So, yeah.
Because people are going to be watching this that are aspiring artists, so you're going to be giving them ideas.
Yeah. So right now we're just gonna have fun with it, and like, we did mention what the idea with of this theme was. So we've got like Logan or Wolverine possibly at a club, and maybe a Stripperella or Exotica, as we would say. Her name, her side name, or her. The funny thing about Stripperella, I thought, was that she could have had like 3 like names or 3 aliases or whatever it is that you want to call it.
Right.
Because like it would be her stage name, which would be either Stripperella,
her,
and then
her real name, her stage name, and then her superhero name. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what
name.
you're throwing down.
Yeah. So something like that. So.
Now let's get right to it, and then I'll insert that clip as well, because let's talk about Chastity.
Oh, Chastity! Oh my gosh, yeah, the character. That was an interesting character.
Tell that story that we were talking about yesterday with the Deadpool reference while you're drawing.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I didn't know that that was gonna be even an Easter egg at all until like I saw the movie. And then, well, anyways, it's that scene apparently where Stan has his cameo, as he does in all these other Marvel movies, in the strip club in the Deadpool 1 movie. And you clearly see him, and he's in the DJ booth, which they have like, DJs that work at strip clubs. And he, from what I remember, he says, "And now we have Chastity on next. On the stage," or something like that, But anyways, I thought
coming to the main stage, Chastity.
Yeah. So it was like that moment where I was like, oh man, I wonder if anyone's gonna even notice that. But like throughout the years, like after even like Deadpool's come up, no one's really pointed that out yet. But like now that we're on here on your podcast, you're the first one to know that, and I think it's actually a nice golden Easter egg, little nuggets there for you to share. Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the things that I was kind of wondering, and I was talking to you about too, because like
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is such a huge comic book nerd. Like, it makes
Oh,
me
yeah.
wonder if that was like Stan Lee's idea while they were filming, or if Ryan Reynolds actually requested that.
Well, that's a good question, but I think like Stan is so improvised. He improvises so much,
Right,
and
he's
to
so
come up,
used to being just in stage
yeah,
presence all the time with wherever he
yeah.
goes.
So especially if he's using the name Chastity, you know, Chastity was clearly a character in our book, and she was the sidekick to the supervillain, the Mad Melter. And so if anyone wants to get familiar with the book, you could probably find our book on Amazon or something like that, you know. Like if you find me at a Comic-Con, which I haven't been
Maybe
to,
find a hard copy for sale on eBay.
there are hard copies out there. They're autographed by me and Stan, so you could probably find that as well. So, but yeah, you know, check it out. It's a fun book. It's a very like tongue in cheek. The difference between the book that we did versus the you know, the animation that was done. It wasn't our book wasn't as raunchy. It was more tongue in cheek, and it was just more kind of like the joke behind
whimsical.
it.
It's whimsical and fun. Yeah, very tongue in cheek, and I love tongue in cheek. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was clever. Stan had a lot of little clever moments in his writing and all that. So I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a blast, and I wanted to keep going working on it. But then of course Stan had that deal with Disney, and then eventually I feel like what happened was he took the property or whatever we had done with Stripperella and kind of made it like a dirty secret. You know, because you know it is kind of taboo, you know, and people are like, you know, why is it so taboo? I was like, well, the name Stripper, isn't it? You know,
right? Yeah. Well, and
you know, it's not family friendly.
As soon as you're accepting money from the mouse,
yeah. So, but there's always a way to do it. Like I felt like, hey, if we were to do it, and the last time I met up with Stan, he invited me to come up to his office to meet my fiance, Olympia. Because he found out I got engaged, you know, and I told him I wanted to come and visit him. He said, well, bring her on by, you know. So we went by there and I said, you know, I saw the Deadpool movie and I was like, that is the direction we need to go with Stripperella. If we were to pull that off, it could be an art, you know. So with that kind of level of satire,
right,
you know,
right,
and you got to do that because you can't take it too seriously. So the more you can poke fun at it, the better. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a full length R Stripperella would be amazing.
Oh, that would be a lot of fun. You know, I say we do it. You know, but powers be that be. I don't know who to talk to about that right now. You know, I wish I had that much leverage. You know, but I don't, unfortunately. You know. So.
You hear that, nerds? Make it go viral. Scream and shout. Let's get a Stripperella movie.
Yeah.
Pamela Anderson ain't doing nothing. She'd look great as a redhead.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's other people out there. I mean, personally, I'd say like I'm a fan of like Isla Fisher, like people who can actually deliver comedy. And if she was in it, I think she could pull her husband, you know, Sacha Baron Cohen, into it. You know, so just pull a lot of this comedic weight.
Yeah.
Because to me,
you would need it.
Funny is money, and that's the thing that I'm about. You know, so if we could pull something like that off, that'd be amazing. You know, and
well, and I mean, if you look at so much of like the Marvel movies and the DC movies, like the way they've slowly kind of progressed and changed since Dark Knight made all that money going dark, then it was just like, oh, wait a minute, you can't put humor in a dark movie. Nerds were like, oh, how dare you? But then that's been slowly showing up in the Marvel darker movies too. You know, with like your Thor dark. Whatever the hell that's name of, but that was kind of they kind of got a little darker in the storyline there, but the tongue-in-cheek kind of, you know, humor and stuff was still there.
That worked for me. Like I loved watching that, you know, and Taika Waititi is awesome. I
love Taika.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have a potential to work with him on something. I got hit up by a producer to see if I wanted to work with him on a particular project, but like everything, I don't know, like it's been on hold lately, so I don't know. Let's see. It's a lot of that stuff happens. Like, well, you get hit up by a producer and say, hey, you know what, you want to work with this person, and you know, it either it happens or it doesn't. You know, so that's very common in the Hollywood system. So unfortunately, that's how it is. You know, so.
It's part of the game, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, boom, you're getting that offer. Or it'll be an offer from the same person but a different project.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I really would really like to get more dialed in on that, so we'll see what happens. You never know. It's pretty fascinating how things just happen to gel, and I'm really proud of how Stan was able to like transcend a lot of things and accomplish so much. And it was so fun to work with him, man. Like I really thoroughly had a good time working with the guy, you know.
Yeah, you got a favorite Stan story? I know
Oh man.
you're missing that. You got that huge void.
Well, there's so many like events we had, like after
Yeah.
parties,
Well, I
like
mean, lots of people
yeah,
have worked with Stan over the years. Not everybody
yeah,
becomes Stan's friend.
right, yeah. And that's the funny thing. It's like we had this documentary that came out called "With Great Power," and I was in it for like a second, but he was the one, like I was the one he left an audio message for, saying that he was so sorry that our company folded during the Stanley Media Days, and I thought that was really special. That was like really, really sincere, and to me it meant a lot, because and we continued to work together in some way. Like it didn't make me a really wealthy man, but it really helped enlighten me. It made me wealthy in other ways, like through knowledge and through his wisdom.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well,
I,
what
you know
kind of business? I mean, the man's created so many things and worked with so many legends throughout the year in
yeah,
multiple mediums. What kind of
right.
what would you say you took away from him business wise, like business sense? What kind of lessons
um
did you learn working with him?
well, I learned how to work out of my comfort zone, and like during the times when you know like things got a little like slow in the business, or and it happens a lot in certain industries where work comes and goes. I learned how to work with people that had certain prestige or clout or credibility. So because he used to bring celebrities over to the office, like Michael Jackson and Raquel Welch, Freddie Prinze Jr., a bunch of other people, like Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, what's her name, Cassandra Peterson, a ton of people would come through the office there, but Michael Jackson was the one that stood out to me the most, and that was fun because he showed up. Stan showed up to the office one morning, and I was known to show up early at times. I would go into my office, and I would be working like at my desk, and then Stan came in. He's like, "Anthony, I want you to meet somebody," and then I looked over my shoulder, and then there he was, Michael Jackson, like
Awesome. Wow.
standing there. He had like he looked really shy. He had a surgical mask like hanging around his neck and all that, and he just was really like fragile looking. But anyways, it was still king of pop, and Stan was like, "Anthony, I want you to meet Michael Jackson." you know. So I look over and I was like, "Yeah, no, that's Michael Jackson." You know. So
Holy shit.
so Michael Jackson comes over to the table where I'm designing this character called the Drifter, and the Drifter was like this science fiction character we were creating, where he was like a bounty hunter from the future, and he had this nanotech coat which would allow him to create weapons that would leak out of his sleeves, and that was the idea, and he would be able to use his weapons to be able to capture like these criminals from the future to bring them back to justice.
Was he gonna turn this into a whole nother Captain EO like saga thing?
Well, the thing is, that was just a project, and Michael Jackson just happened to see what I was working on. So,
Oh,
but
okay. So it wasn't even
yeah,
for Michael. Okay.
yeah, no, Michael just came in and Stan wanted to show off the studio, and say, "This is what we're working on. Anthony's working on the Drifter," you know, and basically I can remember Michael standing over my desk and over my shoulder and going, "Wow, so cool, so cool." And I was just amazed, that he was just such like he looked like a big kid to me, So, and it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, well, and then of course Stan, gave him the tour to the rest of the studio, and I was just thinking, wow, that was interesting, that was cool, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the power of Stan the Man.
yeah, that's the power, So, but yeah, that's one of the stories that I felt was like interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, you've never told me that story before. That is cool.
yeah, true story. So a true Hollywood stories.
Well, and that's and
Yeah,
that's something I talk about all the time.
yeah,
It's celebrities, famous
right,
people. No matter what they're famous from, they're regular
mm-hmm.
people, and
All right,
and every I don't give a crap who you are.
Right.
Michael Jackson was a fan of Stan Lee. Like, everybody is a fan of somebody.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, that's why you got rock stars who, you know, want to be athletes or actors and look up and, you know, and do all that. Like, while you're refiguring her bust there, I'll tell my favorite Stan Lee story.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Bear with me in the audio form out there. I'm having a drink of my Corona. Thank you, Corona Beers. Not sponsoring this podcast.
Right.
All right. So, for those of you who have never been to San Diego Comic-Con or any con, one of the best parts besides, you know, just catching up with friends and meeting new people and seeing new art and, you know, and the celebrities and stuff at Comic-Con, one of my favorite parts is the after parties.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And San Diego Comic-Con is legendary for gigantic after parties, the kind of money spent at these after parties that you just wouldn't believe, with pyrotechnics and lights and just celebrities coming and going and just, I mean, do you even have a favorite after party from San Diego Comic-Con?
The sci-fi party was pretty fun because I remember that's where I met John Cho, and John and I were hanging out, and we were both drunk, but like I felt like it was like one of the most memorable moments because I really enjoy his work. I actually connect with him in some way where I could relate to him when I watch his films. So to me, he's one of those Asian male Americans who has transcended his you know, his roles, and he's not playing the stereotypes, which I like a lot, you know. Because I could relate to that more, like whenever he's, you know, acting like, you know, his character or being, you know, himself. You know, I feel like that connects to a lot of Asian male Americans like me.
And we were talking about that yesterday, and that's great. And whereas like being Scottish, like I don't connect to him that way. I just look at him and like I see him, and every time I see him on anything, I can't help but scream out "Joe!" because like to me, he's just a great American actor. Period.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
And you said you want him to play you if they ever do a biopic for Stan Lee, and your character and you're in it.
Yeah, I mean he's taller and more handsome looking, so I think he could pull it off. So the way they sensationalize things in Hollywood, I think that would be appropriate for them to cast John Cho to play Anthony Winn, even though he's Korean, but I'm Vietnamese, but still, who cares? You know, he could
like us white privileged people are going to notice.
No, man, I love his work, and I know he was cast to be in Cowboy Bebop, so I'm looking forward to that. But I heard he was on a little bit of a break from that because he had injured himself. You know.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
So, he'll love John Cho, yeah, for sure. Look forward to Cowboy Bebop. Okay, but all right, San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
All right, this is.
All right, you got more stories? Okay.
Oh man, this is my most epic story, and I tell this story all the time. Now, you remember the Wrath of Khan parties?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so the Wrath of Khan parties, whoever used to throw those eventually stopped throwing them, but they were the hardest to get into, most epic after parties on Saturday nights of San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And one year, a friend of mine was getting people on his extended list because he was running the Sons of Anarchy page on Facebook. So he had some decent connections down at San Diego Comic-Con. And I was the last person in our little friends group that was hanging out all weekend to hit him up to get on the list to get into this party.
Right.
To which I get the text saying, sorry, Casey, but my last spot just went to Stan Lee.
Right.
So my friend who sells houses for a living
right. Okay.
had to get Stan Lee on his list to get Stan the Man Lee into the biggest after party in San Diego Comic-Con. Like, why wasn't Stan just automatically waved in? Why did Stan even have to be on the list to begin with? You know what I'm saying?
Right, because I remember whoever was coordinating that, they would always email me and ask me to help try to egg and Stan on to make sure he showed up at these parties. And I know that I was either a filter between that, or that the connection or the glue that was trying to make those deals happen at times. Because I do remember people contacting me when the time came, and he's like, "Can you get Stan to come? Can you get Stan to my party?"
I'm sure always. I'm sure you got that a lot.
So, and the thing is, occasionally that would happen, we were able to get Stan to go, and then or vice versa. Stan would find like events through his sources, and then he would make sure I was on his list, so but it was like one of those things. It was so chaotic. It just got to the point where it was really overwhelming. And like, because I got into
especially for you, because that's not, you're an artist and you're working. Your job's not to be everybody's hookup and personal promoter for
right. And for a while I thought I was doing that. I felt like I was like doing something that that was outside of my comfort zone, obviously, as we talked about before. So yeah, that was one of those things. It's like if you were wondering like what I learned from that, it's like, I worked out of my comfort zone for a bit, but then I kind of got away from what I was initially doing too, as well. So, but on the flip side of that, I was able to collaborate with some really interesting people, so like outside of the whole Stan Lee thing as well, so I was able to work with some other like musicians or other people that were just in the world of entertainment, but outside of comics, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you remember the specific party I'm talking about too, because Daughtry performed, and that was the party. They had the wrestling ring set up in the middle, and they did like a tag team wrestling match. There's a bunch of wrestlers there too.
Right.
And it was just a huge party, and obviously, I made my way in.
Right.
Not on any list, and
right.
Just talking about this in the last podcast with Mike, who runs the Marvel booth at San Diego Comic-Con. He's like, Casey, you always have a knack for just showing up at the right places and getting into places and stuff, and just like, well, yes, I did, because at the time, you remember, I had really long hair and I always wore a fedora. Well,
right.
People would call me the Fat Kid Rock, and that I'm okay with it. But that weekend, the night before that same party, I was chased across the street by 15 drunken dudes who actually thought I was Kid Rock, chanting Kid Rock.
Oh, yeah.
And you know me, look, I've worked in bars, I've been a bouncer, I stopped a knife fight that I went to, court to put the guy in prison for, took 5 years because I was the main witness. So things don't scare me. That's one of the few times in my life I was like, this is not a good situation. And like rushed into a hotel, into the hotel elevator, shut the elevator doors. It's closing as they're closing in on me. And I'm like going,
oh my God.
Holy fuck.
That's adventures.
Right. But the beauty of being the Fat Kid Rock is because whenever I would be in different after parties, I looked like I belonged.
Right.
Because being a fat nobody, I looked like I was somebody because of the way I dressed.
Right.
Okay. So, so that's partially, that's not how I got into the party, but that's how I stayed into the party.
Right. But I remember we'd always run into each other somehow.
Yeah, we were always running into each other. And because so I was in that party for like a good couple hours, and finally the beers were going through me. I had to go to the bathroom, and you had to have a wristband to get to the party, and you had to go out of the party to the bathroom, and security's like, "Where's your wristband?" I'm like, "Oh crap, they forgot to give me one." They're like, "We've seen you here talking to everyone all night. Go ahead, you're fine." So that part of people, confidence, and just act like you're supposed to be there, and that's half the battle sometimes.
Right. That was a lot of fun though. There's so many events that we had gone to. It just got to the point where it became a blur,
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. But so here's how I got into the party. This was at the Hard Rock Hotel there, and they got that little third-story balcony that's a cool bar that they can shut off to the public and makes it real convenient to have celebrity parties up there. The hard part is getting up there, especially if you don't have the invite. So I decide, I'm just going to try. So I go and jump on the elevator, and this dude comes and follows me. No idea who he is. Just some random dude like I am, gets on the elevator with me. All of a sudden, here, hold the door. So I hold the door, and who walks in on the elevator with me, but none other than Shazam himself. But back then, he was on the show Chuck on NBC, Zachary Levi with his agent, right?
Oh, wow.
Or some promoter that has something to do with the party, right? So boom, 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 we go up, elevator doors open. This other guy that jumped on bursts out of the elevator. I'm going to a party. I'm having a good time. We're gonna just testosterone down the hallway. And I'm like, oh, I'm following that dude. I know a good distraction when I see one. So I pace him down the hallway by about like 10 feet. And I hear Zach behind me getting out of the elevator, and and he says to the agent, "Do you have any idea who those guys are?" And she's like, "I don't know who they are. I thought they were with you." And he's like, "They're definitely not with me." And this guy goes in, takes a right, and shoulder checks through security, and just and boulders through into the party. So guess who walks right into the party, because there's no security at the door anymore? This guy down the road show. And I stayed there and partied and made all kinds of con connections and friends that I have had ever since. So, thank you for not blowing my cover, Zachary Levi.
Nice. That is funny.
Yeah, so that's how I got into that party. So you never know how, hey.
Yeah.
Try sometimes, guys. Try. You never know. Because that was like, honestly, that was before I started Down the Road show.
Right. There was one party that I remember. I wish I remember which one it was, but I remember Stan and I were there, and he had his own little section, but he was standing by himself. And the thing was like there was other people already there, and there were celebrities, and that's why I ran into Emma Stone and what's his name? Gosh, why am I drawing a blank? He's playing Carnage in the next movie.
Tom Hardy?
No, Carnage.
Carnage. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure on who they got to do that.
Right. Oh, shoot, my tablet froze up. Give me a second.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Well, then I will. Okay. While you're unfreezing that, I will continue with my story. Yeah. So the whole reason I brought that up is because celebrities are people too, and they also have their own fandom, and you never know who they're going to like and what they're going to like. So, so this party, it's huge. I'm bumping into celebrities left and right. I bumped into Bud from Married with Children. Accidentally said, "Oh, sorry, Bud," to which he scowled at me. He doesn't like to be called Bud. I forgot his name. Now I'm forgetting it now. But
okay.
Go ahead. You remember?
Oh, the person I remember, it's Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson. So thank you, because that's actually my story. So
okay. Yeah, okay.
So two of the guys I'm in there at the party with, one guy is literally talking to Woody Harrelson. Okay. And the other guy is talking to Kevin Sorbo.
Okay.
And I'm like, literally, they're standing like 3 feet away. And I'm standing like 2 feet away in between them. And I'm listening in on both conversations, right? Woody Harrelson's back is to my friend talking to Kevin Sorbo.
Right.
And Kevin Sorbo says, "Hey, can you introduce me to Woody Harrelson? I'd really love to meet Woody Harrelson."
Oh.
Right? And I mean, Cheers, Natural Born Killers. Come on, so much good stuff. I love Woody Harrelson, right? And I'm like, all right, wow. I'm sitting here as kind of rookie in the industry, not knowing, just watching this, going, holy crap, this celebrity is anxious to meet another celebrity. That is cool. And then here's the heartbreaking moment. And then this is what happens. Someone came over. Right as they're walking up to make the introduction, and about a half a second before they could speak up, another friend comes over from the Stan Lee booth the little private booth over in the corner,
Right.
and says, "Hey, Woody Harrelson, Stan Lee would like to meet you." To which Woody Harrelson's like, fanboys out, and it's like, yes, I get to meet Stan Lee. So
that's interesting.
right? So then, so they turn and they go heading towards the booth.
Right.
And Kevin Sorbo misses his introduction, and I watch Kevin Sorbo turn into a sad puppy dog face because Woody Harrelson just got stolen away as a fanboy for Stan Lee, and just watching that celebrity circle right there in front of my eyes was the most eye-opening experience as an entertainer, a creator, a fan, a human being. Just like, oh my God, you can't pay for an experience to watch something like that.
Well, you know what's interesting is because that must have not been the first time they met, though, because like that party I was telling you about is where Emma Stone and Woody Harrelson was there, and one of the Culkin brothers was with them too. So I waved him down and said, "Hey, how's it going? Woody Harrelson, right?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "You want to meet somebody?" And you said, "Yeah, sure." You know, and he basically followed me from the after party from one end to the other side where Stan was at his little area. And we were actually, you know, I introduced him to Stan. I said, "Hey, you know, Woody, this is Stan Lee. Stan, this is Woody." But that's a true story. Like this is at one of those after parties, and there's actually a picture of us, like where it's like a low angle picture of us all three talking, you know. So, yeah.
Look, if you even remember what happened at a Wrath of Khan party, then you weren't doing it right. So,
okay. Yeah, I wasn't drinking enough, I guess.
I probably was for both of us back then.
Right.
So, I rarely drink these days, but this just sounded good today. So,
yeah. Last night I made myself what do you call it? Lychee Martinis. Yeah.
What's in that?
Lychee. You know what a lychee is? That fruit.
Oh,
I bought it in a can, you know. So, but it's really delicious. It's sweet fruit, and you can put it in like a martini drink.
I love the fact that like while that is so Logan. He's still got a cigar in mouth.
Yeah, I'm trying to capture the old school stuff because it's been a while since I've drawn them, you know, but I think I could pull this off. Yeah, I'm so used to drawing a certain way now, but this is what you're gonna get. So,
we're just happy to get it, and while you're drawing that, and I grab another Corona refill, why don't you talk a little bit about your days of actually drawing Wolverine comics?
Well, that was like in the 90s. So
yeah, how did you get that gig?
Let's see. After I was working at Image for a while, you know, I used to work at Top Cow, working on Rip Claw and some other books and all that. But like, I eventually landed a job working on Wolverine at Marvel Comics. You know, so I worked on it like for about a year or so. You know, so it was a nice run. You know, but it just got to the point where this is when Marvel was going through their transition, and they were changing a lot. And like Logan they gave Logan the bone claws, you know, where they were saying that he was actually part of his anatomy, you know, which I thought was interesting. But it took me a while to adjust to that. But it was, you know, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, an interesting storyline and kind of change of.
Yeah.
I don't know, his origin story in a way.
Yeah.
Some people hated it. I didn't mind it, but you know, I'm not a snob.
Right. I just tried
entertain me, please. That's my motto.
Yeah. I was just trying to do the best I can to be a professional and you know, work on, you know, these projects as best as I could. But like living in LA and living on an income of comic books, the comic book like scale rate of a page rate.
Just because you work for Stan Lee, you're not a millionaire.
Yeah. Well, this was way before I was working with Stan. So this was like before working with Stan, I was already a comic book artist. You know, I bounced around from working on Alpha Flight, Wolverine, you know, but a bunch of other books, like even for Dark Horse, like Star Wars. You know.
Yeah, I love me Dark Horse. Hey, Dark Horse people, love everybody there. But that's my point. Like, you know, you've drawn Wolverine, you've worked for Marvel, you've worked for Stan Lee, and you're not rich. You're still out there hustling. You're still out there working. It's not an overnight money making system.
Yeah, that's what bothered me sometimes. Is people assume that, oh, just because you work with Stan, that means you must be, doing pretty well financially. I'm like, no, heck no, And what people didn't know either is that even after my run in comics, um, and well, is like I worked moonlighting as a stuntman too, because I was doing like Power Rangers and Beetleborg stuff, and I had a friend named, this guy at the time, TJ Storm,
TJ,
right?
shout out
Yeah,
TJ, who's
yeah. So
promising to come on this podcast and has not been here yet.
yeah, I remember we were on like Power Rangers in Space or something at the time. I was moonlighting for Saban, and then at the same time also moonlighting at Saban Animation, doing storyboards and character designs over there off of Wilshire. And I had to make a choice at one point, and I got a call from Stan Lee's office to come meet up with him because a friend of mine was already working over at Stan Lee Media, and he wanted to meet with me. He said, "Hey, Stan wants to meet you. He heard about you." I was like, "Okay, well, that's cool," And I remember
That is
hearing
cool.
that, I remember Stan when I was growing up, like his voice on the Spider-Man cartoon shows, but it just got to the point. I guess I worked in the industry to a certain point where I got a little bit desensitized of things, not jaded, but just kind of like, okay, well, I never got like starstruck, I just was able to work with people, Right. So, anyways, I came in, I showed him my work, a lot of my comic book art work, and then he was like, well, when can you start? And I was like, well, I'm at Saban Animation right now, but I'm also moonlighting as a stuntman. But like, I have to put in my 2 weeks notice. And he basically, his response was, "I'll see you in 2 weeks then." So I gave Saban my 2 weeks notice, and then basically what happened was they threw me a party for quitting. Which I never knew that was even like a deal. So interesting.
Me neither. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So yeah, they did it. They threw me a party for starting to work at Stan Lee Media, and
That's cool. I've always heard they're a class act. Saban.
Yeah, or Saban, like
what was it like working with them? I've heard nothing but positive things.
Well, I was still young and trying to figure things out where I was going to land or where I was going to end up, so I was really unsure. That's why I was moonlighting. But once I started working with Stan, I got like my my salary, and I've got even stock options at the time and all that. And this was during the .com boom, and it was like one of those dream jobs. I was like, oh wow. And of course, and then I got to meet celebrities, that came in, that were working with us, and because we're creating intellectual properties to collaborate with them. And this is where working with Stan became really important to me, was to learn how to work with people that had clout and credibility and work out of your comfort zone. And I remember, I think I told you before, I did a music video a couple years ago. I directed a music video, and that helped me. And I got to work with Josh Homme and his wife, Brody Dahl. Josh had paid for our music video, and we had a budget of like 30 grand, which was really nothing, because to do like, like a 3 or 5 minute like animated thing, it could have cost a lot of money, and that was a fraction of what we needed. I was trying to push for more, but that was like the limited budget for a music video, so 30 grand was a lot.
Right, but and that's so important with a budget too. And I think a lot of people just think animation is just so cheap and easy.
Right. It's not. It's hard, and it's difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's time consuming in a way that's different than say regular, doing regular art versus a comic strip.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, like it's different because you're working at a level where you're doing sequential movement of your drawings, So these days now people are working 3D, and there's such a level of animation now. I studied animation. I actually, in fact, after the Stan Lee Media days, which was like 2000, like around early 2000, the company folded and everybody went their separate ways, and I ended up just bouncing around a lot. Eventually, I got sick, but this wasn't till after I was working at like Mattel. I was doing toy designs as well. So I was a toy designer for Harry Potter.
Once again a completely different medium.
Yeah, I was doing designs for toys and at Mattel, which was interesting. It was fun, but then like they shifted me over to work over in the new media department as well, over where Hot Wheels and Barbie was, and I was doing their online animation stuff on Flash. as well. And that drove me a little bit nuts. But after that, I got a little sick. I ended up going through about a full 6 months of chemotherapy. That kicks my butt. So
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
you're a survivor.
Yeah. So I'm better now. And like by 2009, I was cured. So I was in remission for five years. So yeah.
Good, and
And
we're glad to have you out there.
yeah.
So hey, for anyone out there
Mhm.
fighting cancer,
Mhm.
and stuff like that, what did you do for your own mental health to keep you positive and motivated?
Well, the cool thing about that is well, my mom, she helped me out a lot because I was, of course, her son, and she found ways for me to just retire for a little while from my work, you know. And I eventually ended up living in Laguna Beach for a little while, and there was a college down not too far from where I was living there, Laguna College of Art and Design. That's where I ended up going back to college and learning while I was recovering during my chemo treatments. And then I started learning more digital work and fine tuning my craft more, And the funny thing is some of the students were like, you're already a professional. Why are you coming back to college? I was like, trust me, when you're a pro out there, you're going to continue to keep learning and you won't stop learning. So
in any field,
yeah,
you should
yeah,
never be done
yeah,
learning in
yeah,
any field.
yeah. So don't be
Or
surprised if you
life
ever,
in general.
yeah,
You should always be learning new stuff.
yeah, exactly. So I was like, no matter what you're doing out there as a professional, you're gonna keep learning, and don't be surprised if you end up wanting to go back to college or learning more. So it's not very uncommon, So that's where I felt like I was just like, wow, dealing with a younger group of kids out there, that they have their whole life ahead of them.
Yeah, no,
So
and that's a good point because I say all the time, look, I started as a musician and ended up doing production on
right.
different levels, and ended up in the con world and in the comic book kind of scene. It's the last place I expected to be right now 11 years ago or 12 years ago when I was in the studio making my album. This is not where I expected my life to be. And that's why I always say all the time, look, you don't have to give up on your dreams, but you may have to re-envision it, realize your dream, come up with a different version of that dream.
Right. Fine tune it, polish your work some more, or, go back and just, and really go to the fundamentals again, So, and that's what I felt like I had to do, get back to the basics,
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did.
So what medium did you start in? Like painting, like oils, acrylics, or how did you get into art originally?
Well, when I was a toddler, I was drawing a lot anyways. And throughout grade school, my grade school, which was in Anaheim, Betsy Ross, they ended up sending me to some little art school, which was a little bit of a scholarship where I learned pastels and oils and acrylics, and it was just one of those things where I just had an knack for it. And of course, I studied on my own about comics and how to draw figures and all that when I was in high school. So I was already a geek, nerdy kid. At the same time, I was a martial artist. I had this dream of also being a stuntman. I wanted to be like Jackie Chan, or Bruce Lee or something like that.
Yeah, who didn't?
But yeah. But then, when the calling happened.
Hey, look, I was dying to ask because I didn't know. I forgot you did stunt work, and don't want to assume because you're Asian that you do martial arts.
Well, that's the thing. It's my dad put me through martial arts when I was younger, and I liked it a lot, and it was one of those things where it was really, exhilarating to do certain things, I'm glad I went through it and I learned a discipline, but now I have a different discipline, which is funny because my favorite side hobby right now, outside of what we're doing now, is cooking. Yeah. I love food, man. So I don't know if you know that, but
all day.
yeah.
No. You and I have talked food so many times. I know you're a foodie like me, and and that's another thing. Look, I'll always say I'm a foodie. I will never say I'm a chef. And I used to have a best friend that was a professional chef, and he hated working in restaurants so much. All he ever did was just literally open brand new restaurants for startup companies and then leave after 8 months to a year. And I learned so much about actual cooking from him, just cooking at home, and thought I was a really great cook, but then you start watching Food Network and you're like, oh, you start picking up even more tricks that you didn't learn.
Oh
So
man.
once again, that's another medium you're never
Yeah.
done learning.
Shout out to Food Network though, because throughout my recovery of chemotherapy, to get my appetite back, I would watch Food Network and I learned how to cook, you know. So eventually I got in the hobby or of a habit of cooking a lot, you know. So heck, you know, I always thought that would be a great story for her.
So
Yeah,
so Food Network helped you get through your cancer recovery.
Yeah. So, you know, anybody over at Food Network, you know that. Okay.
No, that's cool because that's
Yeah.
and that makes sense because like food brings people together, and a
Yeah.
proper healthy diet is, you know, so
Oh yeah.
important for your own personal health, both mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely.
What we
Yeah.
put into us affects us all the way around.
Totally. Yeah. It helped me get like reconnect to certain like comfort foods that I really love. Like growing up Vietnamese, like I love Vietnamese food.
Oh
You know,
God, so do
there's
I.
like there's pho, you know, and there's like
Mm-hmm.
like caramelized beef or shaken beef, or there's a bunch of like
I
other
love shaken
dishes
beef.
too. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, oh man, I
Mhm.
miss the pho place. There's a pho place like right around the corner from where I
Mhm.
lived in Lake Forest, where I
Yeah.
lived in Orange County, and
Uh-huh.
like the owner would always give me shit every time I'd order a second Vietnamese coffee because
Uh-huh.
I'm too white to handle that kind of
Oh.
strength of coffee,
Um.
according
Oh
to
man.
her.
Oh man, I missed that.
Yeah, just you're no, you're too American. You can't handle it. It's just like
What?
give it to
Ah.
me to go. Give it to me to go, so you don't have to deal with me.
Oh.
but
Jeez.
but like I would eat there once a week, and at one point,
Yeah.
her daughter came over. It was like August, and was just like, you know, Casey, my mom loves you so much, and we just got to thank you because like people don't eat pho as much as you do all
Uh-huh.
summer long because it's a hot dish. Like
Right.
I'm there really.
Yeah.
So winter time, I'm there multiple times during the week, but I'm there once a week, no matter what during the summer. Like I don't give a crap that it's a hot soupy dish. Like give me some pho all day long.
Oh yeah. Oh man. I have my own pho recipe where I make it shaken style.
Uh huh.
Like, and I also I take my torch and I torch the brisket, so it gives it a nice smoky flavor, and
Yeah, get that
it
char
also
flavor
char
before you
flavor.
put it in there.
Yeah. Like I'll use my torch on the meat on the side before I put it into the broth. So like after I prep it, you know. So it's a good way. It's the only way I'll cook it now. But it takes me like a day to make the broth though. The broth takes some time. So totally
Wow.
worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything steeped in that much flavor is totally worth it. I made some
Yeah.
rainbow chard with bacon and onions in a day, and just
Yeah, I saw that.
put in the slow cooker all day, and like I'm with a little bit of chicken stock too and water, and it came
Oh
out
yeah.
so much better than I was actually expecting because I didn't follow a
Uh-huh.
recipe. It was one of those things I just saw them at the grocery store and I was like, wow, those are some gorgeous leafy greens. I got to buy those for
Uh-huh.
tomorrow, and then brought them
Yeah.
home and was like, nope, putting them in today because they just look too good.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So is that how you landed your wife? Did you cook for her?
You know, the funny thing is we met online on Facebook because we had mutual friends through Facebook. And I was actually doing a lot of like cross promoting with a world champion pole dancer by the name of Felix Kane for a while. And she is the elite pole dancer, like I'd say in the world, like the
Mm-hmm.
Tony Hawk of pole dancers, you know? So we made,
It's
yeah.
practically an Olympic sport these days. Yeah,
Oh yeah, we
and
became
they
friends. Yeah.
you know what? And for anyone
Mm-hmm.
out there that's like getting all perverted or being
Mm-hmm.
all sensitive, no, these
Okay.
pole
Yeah.
dancing is extremely athletic.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, these women are impressive, and men. I have guy
Right, right.
friends. I have guy friends who do it, and they're extremely talented. So,
Right.
and shout out to my friend Mercy. Go follow Mercy.
Yeah.
She teaches pole dancing. So go follow Mercy Malik.
Right. Well, anyways, that how Felix Kane had tied into what we were doing was because she was a pole dancer, and when I was finishing up the Stripperella comic book with Stan, I was watching the Conan O'Brien show, and he had a featured pole dancer performing, which was Felix, on his show. And when I saw that while I was working on the book, a light bulb like lit up in my head. I was like, I should get a hold of her. And like, I found her website and I emailed her and I said, hey, I'm doing this book and, and with Stan Lee, and we're about to be finished with it, but I'd like to cross promote somehow with your
That's
art.
Easy cross promotion. Yeah.
Yeah. And she responded to me really fast, almost the same night. I emailed her and she said, I'm performing at the Green Door in LA. You should come by and see me. So I did. I went over there and went to see her, and she was like fabulous. She was awesome. She did a big performance, total rock star, did this amazing performance, and it was just like mind blowing. And all these other women like that, like, like worship her, she's like a goddess. Right. So anyways, Olympia.
She's the Vita Von Tess of that industry.
Yeah. So, Olympia was a big fan of hers too, and she was learning her pole techniques online, a lot. And eventually, what had happened was like throughout the years when I was working on the Stripperella stuff, I had gained an interesting like fan base, I guess you could call it, or like it was kind of like a niche market of pole dancing people or people that were in the industry.
That makes sense. When you said interesting, there's lots of ways that can go.
Yeah. So on Facebook, that's where I was able to connect with a lot of people, including my fiance, and that's how we met. And the funny thing about that was because I used to tease some of my friends that were meeting people online, and I was like, "How do you know anybody that you're going to meet online?" You know what I mean? And then, of course, it happens. The serendipity happens, and then I'm like, here it is. I guess. Anyways, what happened was I was working on a movie back in 2015 through the Third Floor, and I had already gone through a breakup, and I was happy just kind of doing my own thing, and I didn't think much of being with anybody at all. In fact, I was just content, and then Olympia hit me up on Facebook, and she asked me to like her page. And I basically was like, okay. And then this was back in 2015 in March 7th. That's where like I could remember that date. So I technically put that as almost our anniversary. So we have like 2 anniversaries: the day that we first started talking, and then in like September 3rd later in that year when I committed to coming down to meet up with her. Because after March 7th, we never stopped talking, and we talk every day. So now
I love September 3rd. That's that's my second birthday.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, there you go. It's special. You know that, right?
Yeah. No, when it comes to numerology and numbers and synchronicity, September 3rd is an extremely special day for me. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I basically
yours is more special, but
yeah. So like I eventually committed to coming down and meet up with her, and then like ever since then, like I go down there a couple times a year. Now it's kind of hard because of course the pandemic, but I have an apartment down there, and when I go down there, I'll stay between either 2 to 3 months, so, but I miss being down there. I miss her. So, but we talk every day. In fact, before you called,
I was going to ask, how are you keeping that love alive with the distance?
Well, there's Skype, or there's FaceTime, so, it's amazing. At least we have that, so I'm glad that we have that ability of doing that. So, but yeah, that's basically it right here.
Yeah. And that's, and that's a valid point too. Like, you never know how you're going to meet people, and people talk about like, the online friendships, and like, I've gotten this discussion or argument, and I will take this side of the argument all the time, that I have friends on Facebook that I've only met once ever. I can't even remember which convention we met at and became friends at. I also have other friends on Facebook that I met in like Facebook groups that I became friends with that I've never met in person ever, that understand me better on a human level and a friendship level than people I went to high school with, or people I have known since elementary.
Right.
So you find your tribe, your soul tribe. You pick your family. You never know when someone's, because as people, as humans, that's the one thing that drives all of us, and that we will always have in common, is connection. We all want to be understood. We all want some sort of connection, whether it's romantic or friendship.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I'm a romantic at heart, you know.
Yeah,
But it just it got to a point, and then everyone gets to the point of like where you know they either go through a lot of things, and I think it's important to have that that human condition. Like if you don't have enough failures, how are you gonna know how to be a success? You know,
hmm
so because there's no such thing as like a success right away. You know,
no,
you have to have enough broken hearts to understand like who you're gonna love, like you know, and specifically like you know you can be selective. So that's where I learned how to be more selective. And of course, when I went down to meet up with Olympia, I knew right away we were hitting it off, and we talked enough too before I went. Like I went down there, and it was just one of those things where it's like, you know, this is a woman I want to be with, you know. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And what you just said there, relationship wise, works
Mm.
in business and in life in general too, though.
In a sense, oh, we're not doing business together. We just, you
No, no,
know,
no, no, no.
uh, uh, uh,
I mean, as far as
oh, oh yeah, 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 yes,
as far as acceptance and just like yeah,
mm.
don't be close minded. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah. Take a leap of faith. You know, I like that mantra from that movie Inception. You
hmm
know, have you ever seen?
I have, but tell me
Yeah.
which mantra you mean.
Oh, they Ken Watanabe. He's talking to Cobb, which is Leo DiCaprio's character, before he gets on the helicopter or leaves the helicopter, and then he says to Cobb, he's like, "Mr. Cobb, do you want to take a leap of faith or become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone?" You know. So whenever after I saw it, I was like, "That's a heavy mantra." I was like, "I like it," you know, and that applies to
Right
life.
there, yeah,
You
right
know.
there.
So yeah.
And
So
and and
take the leap of faith. Yeah.
exactly, you have to take a
Yeah.
leap of faith if
Yeah.
you. And I say that all the time. Look, if you don't risk it
Hmm.
all, you get
Yeah.
nothing. So in
Right.
order to get it all, sometimes you have to risk it all.
Right, and it has nothing to do with being religious either. You know, it's just more
No,
like yeah, yeah, and that's why I liked that mantra so much. It was like he was trying to tell Cobb
it's
to
like being a betting man. Are you going to go all in, or are you going to
yeah, yeah,
fold?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm drawing Logan here as if he's like the size, the proportionate size as he is in the comics, not like the Hugh Jackman size. You know, because I know I like Hugh Jackman. He's cool. You know, I love what he did with Wolverine, but I still say
He's all I can see
Wolverine.
is Wolverine anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, Wolverine has got to be a. You know, to me, he's got to be like this kind of guy that's shorter than me.
hmm
You know, so you know, because that's
Yeah.
what he was. He was like a little runt, right? That was the term that they called him in the comic book, right?
Right. Right. And well, one of my favorite conversations ever with Lem Wine.
Len Wein, yeah, yeah.
I'm saying
I
his
remember
last name
Len.
wrong.
Yeah, we worked over at
Coronas are
convention.
kicking in. Anyway, the
Yeah,
creator of Wolverine
yeah, yeah.
at Big Apple Comic Con in New York. Uh, it was just after Les Miserables came out, and
Mm-hmm.
Hugh Jackman was getting a lot of flack for his singing. I've always
Uh-huh.
thought he was a good. I've always thought he was a good actor,
Right,
but
right.
I was really surprised by his singing in Les Mis. And
Yeah,
it may not have been award-winning, Tony Award-winning singing and whatnot, but it
yeah,
was at a level I was not expecting from Hugh Jackman, to the
yeah.
point where our conversation became, and then there's a couple like nerdy fans there. Our
Mhm.
conversation became all about Wolverine the musical,
Oh, that'd be funny. Oh man.
right? Like,
Oh man.
because at the time, Spider-Man the musical was out there, and it was a huge thing.
Oh man.
So why
That's
not Wolverine the musical with Hugh Jackman? Which now he's done playing Wolverine, so that ain't gonna happen. But I mean,
right. Like, he's done with Wolverine.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's done with it. But
He's
I
done
just
with
always thought that would be a. I haven't been to enough. I haven't been to Broadway ever, and I haven't been to enough musicals in my life for as much as I
yeah.
love musicals and music. But like that's something I would fly to New York and pay to see in a heartbeat.
Right. Oh man. Yeah. What was the last musical I saw? I think it was like Oz. Is that what it was? Yeah. So
Oh,
a long
okay,
time
yeah,
ago. Yeah.
yeah. I saw Wicked about
Oh
6
yeah.
years ago.
Was it Wicked? Oh shit. Maybe that's what
I
that
think you're
was.
talking
Yeah.
about Wicked.
Yeah.
I saw Wicked for my first time with my family about 6 years ago at the
Uh-huh.
Pantages in Hollywood, and of
Uh-huh.
course, like, you don't need a reason to go to the Pantages. The Pantages Theater in Hollywood is just, first of all, it's historic. Second of all, it's just amazing and so decorative on the inside. It's just a cool place to go.
Yeah.
But Wicked, like, Wicked is Wicked. It is so good. It's such a and I
Mhm.
love the juxtaposition of, because that's something I love to talk about all the time.
Mhm.
That I usually bring up at the end of these podcasts to talk
Mhm.
about with your favorite superhero, favorite villain, and things like that.
Mhm.
Uh, some of my favorite heroes and some of my favorite villains are because of juxtaposition, or not wrong word, uh, but their choices and the
Right.
choices
Right.
they can make. And one of the reasons I love Superman so much, and he's always will be my boy number one.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, Batman fans, but
Uh-huh.
because like like the Red Sun, like
Mhm.
that just
Uh-huh.
came out. I never read it, but I finally got to see the movie and was so excited. But just
Uh-huh.
the mere concept, and that's always fascinated me as a concept before Red Sun was ever written. As a child, I immediately
Mhm.
recognized Superman could be the biggest, worst, greatest villain of all time.
Right. Uh,
But he landed and the Kents found him and grew up in Kansas on a farm and became a good old boy and became the Boy Scout, you know,
right. Uh-huh.
Captain America idealistic version for
Right.
DC, that really launched most comic books and things like that. Uh,
Right.
the Superman ultimate hero, but he could have been the worst villain of all time. And
Wow.
and just like
Yeah.
why Vader is my favorite villain, like Vader started out as a good guy,
Yeah.
was one of the worst villains of all time in cinema, in just like an epic space way that like we'd never seen
Right.
in theater, especially as a child, that affects you for life. And then in Return of the Jedi ends up saving his son. So those kind of turnaround story arcs, because we all have a
Yeah.
little bit of good and a little bit of light,
Right.
plus we all carry a little bit of darkness in us.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Um. Yeah. I like what's his name? Who was playing Superman for a while? Was it
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill? Yeah. Um. I liked his portrayal of it. I wish the scripts were better, like in all the current
Right.
DC universe movies.
Nothing he could do about that, and that's
Yeah.
why I feel, and that's why, and oh, I
Mm.
feel bad. Like, Christopher Reeves will always be my number one Superman.
Oh yeah.
I loved Smallville, so Tom Welling's always my number two,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that they kind of gave him a little darker, edgier thing with Henry Cavill, but like,
Mm-hmm.
who I feel the worst for is Brandon Routh.
Oh, okay.
Because that movie writing, like, it just kind of, as a
Uh-huh.
Superman fan, it sucked. I was so
Uh-huh.
excited to see Kevin Spacey as Lex
Oh
Luthor,
yeah.
but that fell flat too. Like, there's just so much
Yeah.
that didn't work about the movie. And
Right.
then here's the worst part. And then, not the worst part, best and worst part. Then I got to meet Brandon Routh at Salt Lake City Comic Con while I was
Right.
helping a company there get
Uh-huh.
celebrity autographs to raise money for a charity.
Uh-huh.
And after spending 5 minutes with the dude, he is a living, walking, breathing fucking Superman.
Oh, that's
Like,
nice.
he is just the nicest, sweetest
Yeah.
guy you will ever meet, and
Right.
looks like Superman, carries himself like Superman, has Superman mannerisms and idealisticness,
Right.
So when he popped up as Adam in Legends of Tomorrow, I was just like, oh,
Uh-huh.
good for him. Like,
Right.
it was watching him do that. It was almost like, I'm not even sure if he's acting, because like he's just such a nice guy. Playing Adam on that just seemed like it wasn't even out of character for him. So like,
Yeah.
if anyone ever deserved a redo and to be Superman again, it's him. Which is why, did
Right.
you watch the Crisis crossover on CW?
I didn't. I've been really selective on what I've been watching. So like
And you're working. You're working.
Yeah, I'm working a lot, but like yeah, I mean, to be honest, like the last actual thing I binge watched was Waco on Netflix.
I
That
need
was
to start
heavy.
that. I need to start that. I've heard really good things.
Yeah,
Really
the performances are great. And it's based off of 2 books, I guess. But like off of like one of the members that had gotten away, and then the FBI agent who was the negotiator. So really fascinating story. I like those type of shows, or those movies or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, then, I highly recommend, because I just got done last week with Money Heist. There's only 4 seasons. The last couple are really short. I can't wait. I can't wait for a 5th season. It comes out of Spain.
Yeah. Okay.
It is an amazing production. I've said this more than once, and I will keep saying it.
Really?
I consider Money Heist a master class in television production.
Okay.
From the writing to the acting to the filming and editing to the music selection to just everything involved. It is poetry in motion in every sense of the word.
Okay.
Yeah, I cannot brag. I have nothing to do with it. I cannot talk about Money Heist enough. It is absolutely amazing.
Okay, I'll have to give it.
Give it a shot. And it's so good that you just fly through it, and the first season is like 16 episodes, and then after that they're like 8 to 10 season episodes. So like you're done with it real quick, and then you're just jonesing for more.
Right. Well, there's some impressive shows out there. One I actually binge watched with Olympia while I was in Brazil back in January, in February, was the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which was actually really good.
just binge that. I binged that over a week. All seasons over a week about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And it is so good. First of all, I love stand-up comedy. I have a bunch of stand-up comic friends.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And so like it's such a unique introspective view of the comic stand-up world, but not just that, on where it began and really transformed in the 50s and 60s to launch the way it is now. Because all that Lenny Bruce stuff is like really, that he would get arrested for saying foul things that these days aren't foul at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate of how Lenny Bruce's life went, but like I was intrigued by watching the actor or the person portraying him, and I was always looking forward to see that character, or the Lenny Bruce character, and apparently he captured him so well in his aura in some sense, and on that show, and it is a good show. It's one of my favorites, I gotta say, and it's loosely based off of Joan Rivers, right? So from what I read,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a homage to her, so they took some liberties on that. But yeah, great show.
And for all you young kids out there, Joan Rivers is a legend, and she was an original stand-up comedian that didn't take any shit from any man in Hollywood.
Yeah. It was it's a beautiful show though. Yeah, just it's one of those, like, I like the costume designs, all that work put into there, and like just it's well written, and
well, I mean,
great cast.
And thank God for the Golden Globes, because that's what turned me. That's what turned me on to.
Right.
It's out of England. It won a bunch of awards, and the girl who keeps winning awards and wrote it. And Fleabag. Fleabag is okay. Fleabag is really hard to watch.
I haven't watched it yet.
In the best of ways, hard to watch, because like. We all have that friend who's socially kind of awkward, or that friend who just always says the wrong thing because they're just too truthful and honest.
Right.
That's Fleabag. Every single episode is going to make you just feel slightly uncomfortable in a completely different way. But the acting in it, and the situational humor in all of it, and it's British comedy humor, so it's got that dryness about it and whatnot, but it's like it's so good. But it was one of those ones where like I couldn't binge it because there's so much uncomfortable awkwardness in it. Like it's hard to binge because of that. But great show to just throw in your repertoire.
Okay,
how'd you
I'll
feel?
Check it out.
I'm sure you've watched Witcher. How'd you feel about Witcher?
Oh, we binge watched that too. I was expecting more out of it, but like,
I think,
Uh,
and I see what you're saying. Season 1 felt kind of like a setup.
I got confused, to be honest, watching it. I was like, what's the timeline and all that was like really throwing me off. Yeah.
How many episodes in before you realized they were doing a whole time thing and different shots were because you're like me, you understand production in a way where most productions will put a different filter on different timelines, so it's visually represented. But they didn't do that at all.
Right. Yeah, I was completely like confused and lost watching it, and I got to the point where, and like both Olympia and I were just, I don't know, it's not as good as we thought it was. It felt like personally, I felt like it was forced. The idea was there as far, and like some of like the set designs were beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Since Olympia has a very
the fighting was great.
Yeah, she's got a really keen eye on fashion though too. So when she saw like some of the costume design, she's like, "Oh, that's horrible." So as far as like the choreography of all that stuff was beautiful and all that, but it just got to the point where it felt like they were competing with what Game of Thrones had done, and
I see what you're saying, which you don't ever try to compete with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Speaking up, hey, we're going to bring up Game of Thrones and let's talk about it. How'd you feel about that last season? Because it got a lot of fan complaints out there. And I've been very public about like, look, those directors got the offer to do Star Wars. So they had to make a decision. Do we want to make one last really epic long season, or do we want to make it shorter and condensed so that we can do Star Wars? And as a fan, creator, and lover of all those genres, you're damn right. You do Star Wars.
Right.
Right? I mean, because you got an opportunity to do a storyboard for something that you've been a fan of as a child, as a creator. You're going to do everything you can to make sure you're a part of that creative process, right?
Right. But boy, what an amazing series of great
series
episodes.
Arc.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the last few episodes was really rushed. So I felt like Game of Thrones could have used another 6 more shows to like explain how they got to that point. And
I understand most people's feelings on that, and I think 1 to 2 more shows would have been okay to stretch that out, because the subtle rage that Daenerys was going through, Queen of Dragons, loved her to death, but the subtle amount of rage that was there was always bubbling just under the surface and was visual in her performance leading up to, fuck it, I'm just going to destroy everybody.
Yeah. It just
and it was once the season was over and I went back and watched the entire season over, it was visually there. It was easy to see. And that's why now I'm like, 2 more episodes would have stretched that out enough for fan base to actually get how that switch happened so fast.
Right. Because I'm not against their decision of all that. I just wanted them to
explain themselves.
Explain it more, like have the reasoning of it there, because apparently the writer, what's his name, fuck, I'm drawing a blank, he
names don't matter, keep trying.
The
only blank that doesn't matter is the one over here on this screen.
Sorry, I'm drawing and trying to think at the same time.
No. I can't even draw. Okay, I can barely hold a podcast and do an interview, let alone draw while being the person interviewing, and then try to remember, pop culture references. So,
anyway,
pop culture reference is not important, sir.
Anyways, apparently that's how the story was supposed to be played out. So.
Right. And did you read the books at all?
I did not, so I'm guilty of, maybe being a nerdy, nerdy poser.
Guilty. No. Look, there's lots of things I'm fandom of that I haven't read the books. That's one of the few things that I started with the books, and that's, because my sister's an English teacher, and she got the entire family turned on to the series. So when found out HBO was doing it, it was just like, okay, this is going to be awesome and epic. Maybe, because at the same time, I was a big fan of the show Rome, which I think was on Showtime. And they didn't budget properly, and after like 2 seasons, they couldn't continue. And it was an amazing show. I love the writing, I love the filming and everything. It was just, Rome was such a great show. So when Game of Thrones, because I love the books, was being started, that was my worry, was that they weren't going to properly budget this, especially with like special effects.
Right.
That it wouldn't last as long as it did, and thank God it did. But reading wise, book wise,
right.
One of the things I love about Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin and his writing style is it's so different compared to any writing style or any other books I've read. Because I'm a huge, I love courtroom dramas and things like that. So John Grisham has always been kind of my guy. But his writing style is for someone who's dyslexic, really fucked me up a lot, because I had to reread things multiple times, and especially chapters, because once I got to book 2 of the Fire and Ice series, and after I finished that, I realized what he was doing. I had to go back and reread the first book and start completely over, because every chapter, this is what's really cool, and I would love to see this in like a TV show.
Okay.
Quite frankly, the way his writing style is, I think it would be visually really, really cool. You see it every now and then in like movies and things like that, for suspense, but not for the basis of an entire show. And what I'm talking about here is every chapter he writes is from the perspective of a character.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you're in a scene halfway through the book, in book 1, through a certain character's eye. And then a third of the way in book 2, you're in that same scene again, all of a sudden through a different character's eye.
Right.
And going through that same experience, but from a different perspective.
Oh.
And so as a storytelling, and a creator, like, it's just, I'd never read anything like that. I'd never envisioned anything like that. And so I was really waiting that's how I thought the TV show was going to be. So it's kind of a good thing they didn't do that. But like now I'm hoping somebody adopts that style for like a future TV show, because I just think it creates a completely different kind of atmosphere and setup.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I highly recommend reading those books, because it is so interesting the way every chapter is written from a character's perspective. You follow that character through that entire chapter.
Oh, wow. I didn't know George R.R. Martin was dyslexic. Did you say he was?
I am.
Oh, okay. All right.
I misunderstood. I'm dyslexic. So reading something that I've never read that's written in that kind of style messed up my brain, because all of a sudden,
okay.
Because like now all of a sudden I'm on book 2 and I'm like, didn't I just read this in book 1?
Yeah.
Like, what did I read? Like, now I'm just confused. So I finished that book and it's just like, then I realized what was really going on. So it's like, now that you understand the style writing, then that was why I had to start over with, dyslexia messes you up. It's easily confused.
I'll get to that.
I had anxiety the other night so hard with my dyslexia, because it was kicking in hard while I was editing my Clerks podcast. Because I love all 3 of them: Marilyn Gigliotti, Scott Schaffo, and Brian O'Halloran. I can say their names fine, but when it comes to actually spelling out their names and their Instagram and Twitter handles and their website names and making sure they're all right on the screen, my dyslexia was going so crazy on me.
Oh,
like,
wow.
By the time I was done, I had hardcore anxiety going the
other way. Okay. Is there a way for you to double check to make sure that everything is like okay? So,
I did this.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I put on my old man reading glasses and I went line by line, letter by letter, name by name, website by website, and made sure, because I won't tell you which, but I have one video out there where in a comic legend that I worship and love, and I didn't know his name was misspelled.
Oh, sorry if I seem to be stalled right now, because like my tablet seems to be like not working right now.
How dare you, technology?
Yeah. I'm having problems with my my pen. I don't know. Can you see? How's the image coming along?
No, it looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I keep going back and forth between showing everybody, a big close-up version and versus you. So depending on what you're trying at the time.
You'll edit this later, whatever. So, yeah.
But yeah, no,
Cool.
it looks cool.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I still have a ways to go on it, but damn it, I don't know why my pen.
Well, even if we don't finish it here, and right now on the podcast, like the idea is visually there.
Sorry, let me reshare this again here.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Sorry.
All right, we just took a nice commercial break because we're having a good time here talking with Anthony Lee Winn about his career and sharing some great Stan Lee stories. We're going to keep talking as he keeps drying and tries to get his technology going. But thank you back from a commercial break from our sponsors from Everyday Natural Product. They got so many great all-natural products for you to check out at enpstore.com. Plus, they're offering our fan base a 20% discount by using the promo code down the road. These are some great drops. If you're into lion's mane, mushroom, it's great for the brain. It's great for the overall health. Look it up, Google it, and then go over to enpstore.com and try one of their products out for yourself to see how it will improve your own health, mental health, and your daily life. So anyway, back more with Anthony Lee Winn.
Yep.
We got that baby working?
It's still being funky. Sometimes this happens, when I have like I don't know, like a.
It's part of working with technology.
Yeah, I think my wire is worn out. Sometimes when I reboot my computer, and then it starts working out okay, so. We cannot reboot in the middle of a podcast. No. So, but anyways, let's see. Like, what else were we talking about? I miss Stan. Stan's he was my favorite friend and mentor. I felt really powerless towards the end of everything though, before he had passed away, because there was so much.
Like a spectator.
Yeah, people were like pushing and pulling him in different directions, and I'm sure a lot of other people that were his friends felt the same way, where they just felt powerless. I heard even, was it Kevin Smith had mentioned he wanted to help him somehow,
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around, and it's it really is disheartening and sad to me on multiple levels too. Like, I had a friend working with Stan Lee's daughter at the time. To kind of rebrand and put out all new content and whatnot. And he was hitting me up for help. So I was going to be working with that. So I was all excited to get involved with anything Stan Lee related myself. And then it was literally his health started failing about 3 months after that. Was when everything started getting just really weird.
Yeah, the week after, Olympia and I met up with him at his office, and he still looked great. In fact, when we visited him, he said, I'm glad you came to visit me. It's cheering me up. But I had no idea what was going on until after a week after we saw him, we found that Joan had passed away. So his wife was probably really sick at the time too. So it was really, it was nice to see him. And Olympia was really excited to meet him too, because she was wondering our dynamics and how we were friends and worked together. It was just one of those, that was the last time I saw him, in fact, I was actually asking him before that. I was like, hey, if there's any way for you to do this thing where maybe you could help Olympia and I get married, you could be the pastor or be a certified minister or something like that, that would be kind of fun, so, but I think he was so tied up with different stuff though. He was being pulled in so many directions. For somebody his age, he definitely worked until he basically couldn't work anymore.
And well, and that was Stan and his work ethic. But that's what saddens me and pisses me off so much is they were taking advantage of him at the end and just trying to work him too much,
right?
And milk the Stan Lee name as much as they could. There was, I'm not going to mention the Comic-Con, but there was one Comic-Con in particular where things were going viral about how poor he looked in health during his panel and
Right.
and during his signing experiences and just
Yeah.
falling
He was,
asleep.
he
He
was
was just
tired.
so he was just so worn out, and the fact that they still had him and they were still pushing him
Oh
to
yeah.
be as
Oh yeah.
busy as the Stan Lee of old as we remember at
Yeah.
that age, and it was less than a year after his wife died.
Yeah. And sorry, man. I just felt like Max was pushing him way too hard to do all that stuff. He's the guy that was always wrangling Stan around.
Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
Max canceled my personal interview with Stan Lee that
Hmm.
Stan granted me in the
Yeah.
POW, in his personal
Yeah.
office at POW
Right.
Entertainment. Max
Yeah.
canceled that, so I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know. I have my own feelings about Max, so I'm like, so I don't
lots of
want to
people
talk about
do on different sides
it.
of the
So,
fence. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And there's plenty. And look, Stan was old, and there's plenty to blame to go around. Plenty of blame
Right.
to go
Yeah.
around.
Right. Yeah.
He shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have been pushed that hard and worked that hard. Plain and simple.
Right. Yeah. It's just frustrating. Like so many of us felt like
Cheers,
we
Stan.
could have done something. So. I don't know. Sorry, man. My tablet's not working right now.
No, it's all good. Like I'm pretty sure everybody gets the gist. So we'll post this on all my social media, the finished project.
Uh-huh.
And I want the finished project. I want a copy.
Oh, you'll get it.
Okay.
Yeah. It just you get the idea. Like so, you can time lapse it if you want. Like later on, make it more like less boring. So, but like
there's nothing boring about this for me whatsoever.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, what's next? What's next for you then?
I've gotten an email from another job that I'm going to be doing. I don't know what it is yet, but Third Floor hit me up like literally like today, and I'll be working for about a couple of weeks. So more storyboard work. I don't know if it's for a movie or for a video or whatever. So.
That's but for anyone who's interested, like that's the cool thing about some of the storyboard artwork is you'll be able to have this available on your website or for autographs or at conventions once the movies or the TV shows are actually out there, especially if they're nerd culture and
Due to NDA, you can't like post stuff before they release the show or the movie. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So. And there's a couple of movies that I worked on too, like including like Jungle Cruise that's supposed to come out soon, and I'm racking my brain. Oh, a couple other things for a Netflix movie I worked on. So like Jungle Cruise comes out in July, I think. So I can't post anything of that up yet, but like I got to work on that project. That was one of my favorites as of lately because I got to do some really fun drawings on that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I always love that ride. And doesn't that have The Rock in it?
Dwayne Johnson. And I gotta say, man, that guy's like amazing. I wish I had his I want his workout ethic, so I want to get up at 5 or 6 a.m. and start training, but that's not going to happen for a while. So.
Well, we all got goals, and even The Rock, Dwayne Johnson worked to the point to get to where he is. So.
Oh man, that's like, out of all the dudes out there that you want to like match that level, that's he brings his A game. That's awesome, and I like his, I mean, some people will say differently, but I like his way of working as an actor. Like he's funny, he's got good timing, so.
Yeah, I think he's really grown as a comedic actor over the last 5 years a lot, and especially, I mean, I'm a fan of both Jumanji movies. Like, I love them.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm friends with Dave Bautista too, right? And before he got the role as Drax on Guardians of the Galaxy, he was worried.
His being the straight man in a comedy situation is not easy. Well, so like expecting that from Dave Bautista
he's
so
a WWE guy too, and he was so used to doing like these Cinemax movies, his action movies on Cinemax. And I told him, I was like, dude, try something different now. Like, like I know like you want to get this part for Marvel, and for a little bit he thought he lost the role to Jason Momoa, and I was like, well, just whatever you start working on now from now on, I think funny is money, because I believe in that. Like if you could do that timing and humor and all that, you got it. You're money, dude. Because everybody knows you can do action and you're doing all this crazy, like, you know, what are serious movies, but that gets boring, you know? So he took my advice, you know, so he did start doing some funny roles, like, especially, you know, in other movies outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, but he did end up landing Drax.
Gruber.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, it was
Yeah.
hilarious. I loved it.
Yeah.
But I was already,
Yeah.
I was already a fan of Kamal because I interviewed him at Meltdown Comics for like a Kevin Eastman event once, and like he's just a nice guy. So when I first saw the trailer of Kamal and Dave in that movie, I was just like, okay, this could be a lot of fun, and it was worth it. Everyone watch that movie.
That is actually, I think I saw that on the plane when I was on my way to Brazil or something like that. But it's a fun movie. It's a cute movie, you know. So I know there's other ones I haven't seen yet. It's what is it? My Spy or something like that. Is that one?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet myself either yet.
I see that. But I'm glad Dave Bautista is doing good because you should have heard his voice when he was like, "Man, I think I lost the role to Jason Momoa," you know, and I was just.
There's no shame in losing a role to Jason Momoa. There's no shame in losing.
But he thought it was the Drax role, you know. But I was like, nah, you know, it's like just hang in there, you know. So, and he got it. I'm glad he did. It's way better, you know. And I haven't seen Aquaman yet, though. I should give it a chance. I keep hearing.
It was great. Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, you know, my friend Bat at DarkKnightStudios.com, who is a great shirt designer for everybody out there looking for shirts for any upcoming projects. He was always telling me how cool Aquaman is, and I'm just like, you know, what, the fish guy? And then they hired Jason Momoa, and I was already a Momoa fan from Stargate Atlantis, and I was just like, okay, this could be cool and interesting. And then the movie came out, and I was just like, now I have to apologize for decades of making fun of Aquaman. Aquaman is cool.
Yeah. No, it's I'll have to check it out. So
you'll enjoy it. Check it out. All right, well then let's wrap up this podcast with what I was talking about earlier. My favorite questions to ask. Who is your favorite superhero or hero?
That's a good question. Like Punisher was one of my favorites when I was growing up. You know, so I really love John Bernthal's portrayal of the Punisher on Netflix. So yeah, he just looks like perfect for it. So I hope they recast him again, like John Bernthal as the Punisher in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh my God, absolutely.
That'd be cool.
And I don't hear Punisher as an answer very often, but quick John Bernthal, like I got to film his panel after he was killed in The Walking Dead at a Phoenix Comic-Con, and it's on my YouTube channel. And just him talking about how he understood his character and why his character went out the way he did in The Walking Dead, and was like, I agree with my character. He was doing all the right things because Rick was being a pussy. So just the way he comes at things from a character is like, oh, amazing. So when I heard he was going to be the Punisher, I was like, okay, this is going to be epic. But what made him, here's John Bernthal, here's why I love you, and here's why we love you. Because, and major shout out to my friend who owns a comic book shop. It used to be in Ventura. Now he has one in Vegas. But John Bernthal went into his comic shop in Ventura when he got the role, and my friend's like, holy crap, John Bernthal's in my comic shop, and he's like, look, I'm not allowed to talk about this, but I just got the role to be the Punisher. What should I read? And my boy hooks him up with like, you need to read this by so-and-so, this. Like, here's a stack of Punisher books.
Yeah.
Have fun doing your research. And
he's good. He's so good in a bunch of other movies too. Like I liked him in what is that? Like there was a movie where he was in a world in a movie where there was a bunch of like cartel in it. What was it called? Oh shit, I'm drawing a blank again. All right.
Yeah, I can't think of it either. Yeah.
Sicario. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. He had like a cameo role in there, or somewhere where he shows up like randomly as a like a character that was just kind of written into the script. So
I'm gonna have to check that out because I've loved everything he's done. So then, your heroes are always only as good as the villains that's their opposite. Who's your favorite villain? Mine's Vader.
Oh, villain. Let's see. That's a good question. Off the top of my head, as far as comic book wise, or just in general, like villain wise.
Anything.
Like,
I mean, mine's Vader before there was Star Wars comic books, or before I ever knew there was. And like I said from earlier, it's because he had that story arc, and some of the best villains of all time don't know they're villains. They're not trying to take over the world. They think they're on the right side of history.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm trying to rack my brain on which ones there are that I really like the most out there.
Kind of like Corona got villainized for a virus that has nothing to do with them.
Gosh, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think, because I could think of other shows and all that I watch right now, but like comic book wise or like superhero wise, I suppose like a character like if Lex Luthor was done right, not like the one that they did in the recent like Justice League movies and all like that or whatever. I wasn't a fan of that because
I'm not. Oh my God! No. Sorry. Hashtag not sorry, Jesse Eisenberg for that performance.
Like if they were to cast
never again.
If they were to cast somebody like what's his name, Bryan Cranston as Lex Luthor, that would have been perfect for me. And I like.
I feel like my face is melting from you just even suggesting that. That is.
Yeah, that would have been like good because it would have been a sophisticated, smart like villain, like a character that was really thinking that he's trying to do good for the world, So
right.
In a sense where
and in certain comics, Lex Luthor does become the hero too.
Yeah. So like from what I was watching, like the one that they had on recent movies, he came off as like a spoiled kid. That didn't know what he was doing, so, yeah.
I heard that so much because I was just making fun of Jesse on Facebook the other day, and a friend was jumping on me, being like, he's my favorite actor ever. I'm like, other than Zombieland, I've hated everything he's ever done, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's personal preference. So who's your real life hero? Who inspires you?
Oh gosh, I have a few people that inspired her, and like stand up obviously was one of them. There's a guy I work with right now, and we work on the scroll on stuff together. His name is Doug Leffler, but he's a writer, but he used to direct too. He was the director for like some Xena shows and all that. But he's the lead of storyboards over at Third Floor. But I'd say he's one of those guys as well. I'm kind of cheating because I'm telling you more than one hero I ever know.
No. If you're not being inspired by multiple people, then you're not living right anyway.
And then there's that musician I did a music video for. Her name is Brody. I really like that she was able to like elevate her style of music. Going from a punk rock gutter punk musician to being like really like what do you call it, melodic rock musician. It shows her transition. And she's also like a mother of 3 kids, so that's pretty cool. So, and shout out to all moms out there. They're some of the biggest superheroes on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. Shout out to my own mother, who is not watching this, and thank God, because she doesn't want to see me drinking on camera. Oh yeah. It's okay. You enjoy a beer every once in a while. Yes.
Exactly. So where can everybody find your art, purchase some old art, and follow your career and what you're working on, especially all the NDA stuff you're not allowed to talk about, your social media?
You could find my website, anthonywinart.com. That's pretty easy. ANTHONY WINN art.com. So, okay.
You spelled art for everybody that can't
spell. Just in case. I also have like what do you call it, an art station. You can find my name, just type my name in, an art station. But as far as that, keep an eye out for some, I don't know, like some new stuff up on my site. I haven't uploaded anything for a while, so.
That's because you're busy working, and that's what I like to hear. I love what my friends are working on. Especially with the con, you know, with the con circuit being canceled or not canceled,
Yeah.
but temporarily on hold, like I got so many hundreds of friends that are not making money right now. And if
Right.
they're not at a con on a weekend, they're not making money. So my heart is bleeding and goes out to all of them right now. So
yeah, just hang in there, you know. Like,
and that's another reason I want to have you on the show, because you're one of my old artist friends that has branched out in a way I think artists and creators and up and comers need to hear about, because you've diversified yourself so well.
Right. Yeah. And like, if there's anything that you guys want to like know about, like your pay and all that, I always do either daily rates or weekly rates, guys. There you go. If you can do that and pull that off, that's the right thing. It helps the industry.
There you go. That's solid advice. Pleasure catching up with you, brother. I love you to death, and I can't wait to see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, we will, man. All right.
All right, brother.
Thanks, dude. All right, have a good one.
No, thank you for being on the show. We'll see you somewhere down the road.
Cheers.
All right, nerds. Even though we had some technical difficulties, Anthony Lee Winn finished the project for me, and it's hanging on the wall behind me. So keep watching the video so you can see how he did it.